What does God think about marriage? That's what we're going to talk about today in Mark 10. Well, we kick off this chapter talking about divorce. And it's sad when families break up. It's an institution that was meant to be forever, where people can depend on each other and rely on each other when the marriage is forever. It hurts people, it hurts children, and everyone gets hurt in the process. But it's a little bit different back in these days. When the Pharisees came up to him, and they're still trying to test him. So they say, well, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? And Jesus replies, well, what did Moses tell you? Oh, well, Moses handed out divorce certificates. And Jesus said, that's because your hearts were hard. A man was to leave his father and his mother, hold fast to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. They're no longer two people. What God has joined together, let no man separate. Why were they asking him this question? Because Pharisees and probably Sadducees were divorcing their wives for pretty much any reason. She was unpleasing. She was unpleasing to look at. She wasn't doing her housely duties well enough. She was a terrible cook. Or we already had our kids, so it's time I got rid of her anyway. They were like lawyers. Not to be mean to lawyers. Lawyers know every bit of the law, and so they can figure out how to get out of something. And it wasn't meant to be. The hardness of the hearts in Moses' time was because they're wandering around in the desert for all these years. And you need each other to survive at this point. So there was an exception made, but that exception wasn't supposed to be forever. That a marriage was supposed to last forever. And so they're asking him these questions, knowing full well what's going on in their own community. And the part of it is, too, is that when you divorced your wife, they may not have owned land, property. They may have walked away with nothing. You're forcing them into this situation where they're either going to be, I guess, housemaids or prostitutes or being desperate to marry someone else. And now you're having her getting married when she shouldn't have been having to get married again. This is a really weird, tricky translation here. Because she's not doing anything wrong. She's desperate to get her life back together. He did something wrong. And they know it, and everybody knows it. So Jesus tells them that they should be educated about what Moses started. And what they were doing to these women was wrong. You are supposed to leave your mother and your father and cleave to your wife. You are now one thing. You are together in one thing. And that's what I guess when I keep thinking about it, that this was all supposed to be forever. And we're going to be walking in the garden. Sin enters the world, and suddenly we chose wrongly then. We continue to choose wrongly now. We want what we want, and none of this is what God intended. God intended for marriages not to break up. God intended for these marriages to be forever, and what these Pharisees were doing were horrible to their wives, to the mothers of their children. I mean, it's not how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be stability in the family. And so then Jesus comes right out. Whoever divorces his wife, remarries again, you're committing adultery. But it's also true if she divorces her husband and then gets remarried, she is also committing adultery. Nobody gets a pass in this. So then a man comes up to Jesus and says, good teacher, that'd be rabbi. Rabbi means teacher. What must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, 10 Commandments stuff. Do all of that. And the guy's like, cool, I do all of that. And so it says, looking at him, Jesus loved him. Sell everything you have. Give it to the poor. You will have treasure in heaven. And then follow me. Like I said, Jesus always knows everybody's hearts. He knows exactly what it is that they're thinking and what they need. He didn't tell everybody to do this. There will be other rich people, and Jesus doesn't say that, but I think Jesus knows the heart. Just like he walks up to Matthew and says, follow me. He knows Matthew's going to say yes. When he tells this person to do this, he knows what's tripping him up. What's the one thing he loves more than anything? And Jesus is like, give that away. It reminds me of like the parable with the eye and the hand and the foot. If your eye offends you, cut it out. This is the same kind of thing. This is a thing in your life that is causing you to trip up. And sell everything. And so it says that the man was disheartened and went away sorrowful because he had a lot of possessions. This is going to be very hard. And then Jesus says to his disciples, People who have wealth, it's going to be hard for them to enter the kingdom of heaven. And they were stunned about this. This would have mattered to the Romans too, because Romans made a wage. They were trying to get wealthy. They were trying to buy a nice house. They were probably trying to get back to Rome instead of the backwater. And so they wanted this. And so this would have been stunning for them. Jesus goes on and says, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, the biggest animal that they would know of in their world, than to go into the kingdom of heaven. And, why would he say such a thing? You can imagine why this is. I grew up poor, and I know that when you're poor, you hang on to everything you can. You do everything you can to hang on to the things that will make your lives better. And when you get wealthier, it's easier to say, oh no, I'm in trouble. Maybe I have a health problem, or maybe I have a financial situation, or maybe my parents are injured and I need to do something. And when all you do is you only have God, you cling to God, you pray to God, you talk to God. But when you have money, suddenly you're like, well, I could probably take out a small loan and fix this, and never think to ask God, to talk to God about this. And so I think that's part of it, is that when you have money, you think of other options instead of leaning on God. And that's why God talks about it. That's why he talks about money and sexual relationships so often, because those are the two big things that's going to lead us away. Can I live with my boyfriend? Can I spend money on what I want? Can I ignore the poor people in my own community? Those are the things that are going to be most challenging. And so now they're kind of panicked, I bet. And, Zebedee probably was a wealthy man. And so John and James came from a wealthier, maybe not wealthy, family. One of them says, well, wait a minute, then who can be saved? And Jesus says, with man it's impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God. And then Peter, again, being the bold one, and also because he was married, he has probably more invested in this. Peter's like, we left everything to follow you. He left probably a wife. He left a mother-in-law. The chosen decided to give him a child. I guess why not? But, the idea is we left everything, our families, our homes, my fishing business, the house I have that I scraped everything for. We left everything. And that's where Jesus told them in other things that people will have to leave their mother, their father, their children, their homes for the sake of the gospel. And they'll get 100-fold back. And not only that, they're going to be persecuted. Then he goes on and he says this a few times. Many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. We've heard him say this before in relationship to being the smallest, being the servant of all, that who's the most important. This is the upside down kingdom. First will be last, greatest will be less, the less will be the greatest. I was kind of thinking about this when I was in church. I think all the churches in the church calendar did the prodigal son, right? The son who stayed there and did everything as he was expected, but wanted to go off. And then the son who asked for inheritance. You're dead to me now. I just want to take everything that I have and leave and never see any of you again. He's accepted back into the family. And then the dad is happy. Put on the robe, give him a ring, kill the fatted lamb. And I wonder, because all parables are parables within a parable, right? There's always levels to it, that you think that these apostles, they're the first. They were the first called by Jesus. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to come this way that are not going to face the persecution that the apostles are going to face, that are not going to face the hardships that the apostles are going to face. The apostles are going to spend the rest of their lives serving Jesus, setting up this church. Think about the man on the cross. The very last minute, Jesus says, you're going to be in heaven with me today. You're not going to be the first in heaven. You're thinking about things of man. Who will be first? Who will be best? Who will be greatest? Those kinds of things. It's hard for people because they think I should be the first or I should be the greatest. And this is going to be a hard lesson for them. And so now they're going on the road towards Jerusalem, and the apostles were with him. And it says that the disciples who were along the way were afraid. The heat is coming down from the temple structure inside of Jerusalem. And now we're walking right into it. And so he takes his apostles aside and says, and the Son of Man is going to be persecuted. He's going to be handed over to the chief priests, the scribes, the temple structure. We're not going in as triumphant rulers. We're not going in and taking over the joint. This is going to be bad. And those people are going to hand him over to the Gentiles. They're going to torture the Son of Man, Jesus, and they're going to kill him. But after 3 days, he's going to rise again. This is frightening, but the last part is going to be raised in 3 days. That's a miracle, and they should be encouraged by that. Then James and John come up and say, hey, we want you to do whatever we ask. We know, like, his mom was kind of behind all of this. And Jesus is like, okay, what are you asking? Well, allow us to sit on your left and your right in heaven. And again, thinking of the things of man. Now, like I said with Peter, sometimes you have the high moment, and then right after that, you have the low moment. This is a low moment. We want to be right there, sitting on thrones, right with you. The people who were sitting next to Caesar were the most important people. And boy, they don't even know. Jesus said, you don't even know what you're asking. And then he says, will you drink the cup I have to drink? Now, drinking the cup often at times is a symbol towards some kind of suffering. Are you willing to go through the thing I'm about to go through? Because it's going to be bad. And by the way, it's also not mine to give who's going to sit on my right and left. That's only God in heaven. That's his choice. But they don't even know what they're asking. They think of the good things. They think of sitting at the kingdom. And it says that when the 10 disciples heard it, so now we're calling them disciples, but he pulled away the 12 before. So we only have the 12 right there. The crowd is somewhere else. And so the rest of them heard this and were like indignant. It says that they were indignant. Wait, what are we, chopped liver? We don't get to sit right and left? And still nobody gets it. We're all thinking like earthly things. You know, those who are in charge, those are the rulers, the Gentiles, the Romans. They're tyrants over everybody. They think of these earthly ways of being tyrants over men. But it's not like that for you. You want to become the greatest? Become the ultimate servant. That's how you become the greatest. You become great by serving others. We're going to see Jesus wash the feet of his disciples. He's going to express in so many ways, and has already, how to become the ultimate servant. He is teaching them how to do this, and they're just not getting it. And whoever wants to be first is going to be the slave to all. The Son of Man came here to be a servant and to become a ransom for all, for everybody. We're not being triumphant. So then there's an interesting phrase. It says, as they were coming to Jericho and then leaving Jericho, they meet a man named Bartimaeus. Interesting thing about it, and people say, well, what does that even mean? He's coming to it and then he's leaving it. First of all, Jericho is one of the oldest cities, and maybe even the oldest city in all of civilization. Is probably another one that is probably among the oldest, but it's very, very old. And there is the old town, which is where I was. I was on the archaeological dig and looking at the old town of Jericho. But then Herod built an administrative town at that time, a modern Jericho. So you can imagine he was coming into ancient Jericho, leaving ancient Jericho, and heading towards administrative Jericho. This is a little bit more towards the Dead Sea. There was a distance that was there. We did a hike where we walked from Jericho to Jerusalem. Because like I said, my friend was doing all sorts of different hikes that she had planned, and I'm game for almost anything. So it says that the crowd was gathering, following him around. Bartimaeus was the blind beggar, and it says that he's the son of Timaeus. And I think it's interesting that he gives the names of both Bartimaeus and Timaeus, because you could probably go find those two guys. It would just be easy to just generically say, oh, we just healed some blind dude. We know their name. We can go to, we can't, but they could at the time. You don't believe in the gospel? Go talk to Bartimaeus. He'll tell you all about it. He calls out to Jesus over and over again, have mercy on me, have mercy on me. And the people were getting annoyed, telling him to be quiet. And the more he cries out, have mercy on me, then Jesus stops, calls him over, and they bring the blind man over, and he says, take heart. So the man throws off his cloak. He springs up, and then Jesus says, well, what do you want from me? And the blind man said, please recover my sight. And Jesus says, go, your faith has made you well. And immediately he recovers his sight. Now, remember, we mentioned before, there was no spitting, there was no rubbing the eyeballs. Yes, everyone's a little bit different. We all expect our miracles to be a little bit different. Some people need a thing and some people just don't. And so in this case, Jesus says your faith has made you well, just like the woman who had the blood disorder. So what was the faith that was expressed here? It was the crying out over and over again, the persistence in prayer. It's just like the woman in Phoenicia who was arguing with Jesus in an honest, heart-filled way. Persistence. In this case, persistence was paying off. That's his faith. And his faith in Jesus, as the son of David, he knows who Jesus is. He's asking Jesus to have mercy on him. Mercy is getting what you didn't deserve. And the man immediately started following Jesus. He picked his path. He picked the way he wanted to go. He didn't go home. He didn't go see the thing he always wanted to see. He wanted to follow Jesus. His faith was good. So my meditation is about how persistent pays off. I don't know, I'm not a persistent person when I pray. I ask God for a thing and then I let it go. And I don't know why. I don't know why I do that. I sort of think, well, God will just do it or he won't do it. So I don't need persistence. But God's showing right here, and we've seen it before, persistence pays off. Jesus appreciates persistence along with faith. And I'm thinking about that. I was listening to Max Lucado this week, and he was talking about why does God even have prayer? If he knows what you think, and he knows what you want, and he knows what's best for you, and he has the power to do everything, he should just make everything happen. He wants us to be involved. He wants us to take part in our miracles. He wants us to have agency in life. And that's where he's trying to make us a part of the plan. He doesn't want to just deem things to be true because he knows. He wants us to be a part of it. And so prayer is a way that we can be part of it. And so I'm going to think about that better, about having more persistence with prayer. And what I'm going to pray this week is that God's rescue plan is amazing. His mercy is amazing. All these things that he's been doing and telling people, he has this plan since the beginning, and he sees the sin that's around him. He sees the people as they are, and yet he still wants us to be a part of the plan, have agency in that plan. And I'm going to pray for Thanksgiving that God wants us to be a part of this. He wants us to be a part of his rescue plan, and he wants us to have agency in our own lives too. And what I'm going to share with others is that idea that places where people showed persistence in the Bible, they stuck to things. They followed Jesus through thick and thin, even when they were scared, even when they didn't understand, even when they were annoyed or angry. Persistence pays off. We see them people like the rich ruler who heard what Jesus said and walked away disheartened. We see, on the other hand, Bartimaeus, who decided his path belongs right alongside Jesus because Jesus offered him that mercy. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. Please remember to leave a review, tell a friend, say something that you want to in the chat channel, or email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.